Every story has two sides. But what happens when one side is rewritten? Again and again, until truth itself begins to vanish. This isn't just a story about manipulation. It's about recovery, reflection, and the anatomy of deception. A look inside the mind of a narcissist and the heart that survived it. You're listening to Diary of a Narcissist, where truth finds its voice again.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Diary of the Narcissist, a journey of faith, healing, and renewal. I'm Lizeth Lowe, and I'm here joined by my co-host, Jason Foersch. Jason is someone who's lived through the storm and is now walking the hard, honest path of recovery and self-awareness. And today, we want to together open the pages of our stories, the difficult, honest ones, to understand what narcissism really is and how it shows up, and what recovery looks like on both sides. You know, he's an aware narcissist, and in recovery, I am a person who has lived with a narcissist for a very long time. So if you're here healing or just curious or still finding the words for what you've lived, you're not alone. And with that, we're going to start this conversation. You know, we've done a lot of research. You know, we're by no means experts in the subject of narcissism. We're just two people who have either lived with it, and Jason has lived with it as well, but from the other side of the victim. So we did a lot of research, you know, and we hear the word narcissism tossed around, you know, online so much. You know, you hear in arguments, you hear in breakup stories, but what does it really mean? You know, today we're starting right where it all begins, with understanding. Not as an insult, not as a label, but as a psychological defense, you know, a pattern born from pain, not power. And the truth is, everyone shows bits of narcissism sometimes, you know, but not everyone has narcissistic personality disorder. So what is the difference? We're going to dive into that, and we're going to ask some hard questions. Jason here is so gracious enough to open up and tell us, give us some insight from the narcissistic perspective. And so with that, Jason, I like to go into our first segment and talk about awareness and self-reflection. And I want to ask you first question that I have here on my notes. When did you first realize the way you were showing up was hurting people?
This is bad. You know, I just moved I've been to Florida for a couple of years at the time, and I was dating, her name was Sarah first name, and I was in recovery, newly in recovery. So I was learning about myself, and I was aware of it when she told me I was a master manipulator, and I didn't get offended to it. I took it as a compliment. That's where I was standing at the time. I was only a kid, and it just sounded cool because it was master manipulator. And then I was like, what does that even mean? And she got on the topic of being narcissistic. Excuse me. So she threw me a pamphlet, long story short. Here, read this. Tell me if you relate to that. I read it. I related to it. I didn't like it. I didn't like who I was. And I never did anything with it. To be honest with you, the only reason at that time I was a very angry person. So my focus at that time was not me being narcissistic or manipulating. It was my anger. So that took my focus off of everything. And I didn't, so I wasn't hurting myself, and I didn't think I was hurting anyone else. You know, I didn't think it was really a big deal. So I never really done anything about it at that time. That was, like I said, 2007.
Wow. You know, according to DSM-5, narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is a pattern of grandiosity, a deep need for admiration, lack of empathy, that causes problems across situations. It's not just confidence, it's rigidity. It's when that pattern becomes the only way to relate to others. You know, what was the moment for you that made you stop defending and start listening?
Not in that relationship. I think it started, man, you know, probably like around 2000. I noticed I started hurting people probably in my mid-30s, late 30s. I found out that I was like 26, 27 years old. So I didn't do anything about it till then when I realized I was hurting people. My son's mother, it was bad towards her. Yeah, it was probably around that time when I started to notice I was hurting a lot of people. And it was very late for me because at that time, it wasn't a big deal until I kept hearing it. See, here's the thing. The narcissistic wasn't being thrown around a lot when I was in my early 20s. It started getting thrown around like now and even 10 years ago. Thrown around a lot. Everyone, you're narcissistic. So then I started learning more about it. I still don't know everything about it, but I know I have a lot of the traits. So then I still realized I was hurting people and I still didn't work on it yet because I wasn't hurting me.
So what did it look like though when you started to relate to what you read, what your girlfriend at the time pointed out? When did you shift, from protecting your ego and kind of open the door to being curious about others' pain?
That was the problem. I had a real bad ego problem. It was hard for me to drop that wall and crush my ego to accept who I was. I didn't want to accept that. I had to keep those walls up to protect me. I need to be protected from, it stems back to my childhood, defensive. I'm always right. I need things to go my way. It's just, it's my way or the highway. I know my ex was very unpleased with me. She was not happy with me the way I acted. Everything was all about me. Not, hey, how was your day? Hey, guess how my day was? Like she would come home from work and I'd be like, hey, guess what I did today?
Uh-huh.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, honey, how was your day? And it was with everything. Everything was about me. How can you make me feel better?
So from the time you read that pamphlet till the moment you started to become more empathetic towards other people around you, how long you think that took? How long you
I
think?
wasn't even feeling empathetic until honestly a few years ago. Even then, it took a while because honestly, I was so selfish. I wasn't hurting anyone. I didn't see that. I only seen what I wanted to see. It took me to hit rock bottom, to be honest with you, because that relationship I sabotaged. And that was a 7-year relationship, and I sabotaged it. Sarah, that one too. And there was a few other ones I was only a few months, and I couldn't understand why aren't these working out? What's wrong? What's going on? What's wrong with these people? I'm a good guy. I'm funny. And it was just always about me. It's always about me. And I didn't see that. I honestly, truly didn't see that. I knew I was a selfish man and I worked on certain things, but only things that I want to work on, the only things that I thought weren't good for the situation.
Everything was about how that will benefit you. If
Everything
it,
had to
yeah,
benefit me. Everything. I
right,
didn't do anything without something in return. I didn't loan anything unless I was getting some extra back. I didn't do
right,
a favor unless I knew I was getting something out of it. That's how I lived. Yeah, that's how I lived.
right. Well, it's gotta be hard to live like that, with every relationship failing and just not having that closeness truly.
I'm trying to remember the feelings. It's been so long since I felt like that. It made me angry. I got angry. I didn't know if it had to do with me not being smart enough, not being good looking enough, not being good enough sex, not making enough money. I didn't know. And it's just selfish. It had nothing to do with any of that.
Right.
You know, yeah.
But psychologists describe narcissism as a spectrum. One side has healthy self-esteem and boundaries. The other is a fixed pattern that blocks connection and growth. So that makes a lot of sense. Traits become a disorder when they stop protecting you and start imprisoning you. There's a frustration that comes with not being able to connect deeply with someone. But I wanted to ask, because now you've been on the road of recovery. So what does accountability feel like to you now compared to before?
Accountability today feels like, it's again, goes back to ego. I had to crush my ego, and own my mistakes, my character. That's just how I act now today. Now I have to be a better man and not to act out in those traits. I have to be aware of the way I'm acting and not feed in on any of it. Being selfish, self-centered, the world revolve around me. I have to think that about that person's feelings. I put myself in their shoes. I have empathy today. I'm always feeling what they feel. Okay, how can I handle this today? Not go right in and be like, oh, I need it done this way. Hey, listen, I need this, this, and this, and this. That's it. Now I need to know what's going on both ends, in the relationship,
Right.
in the friendship, at work, wherever it is.
Wow.
So
So,
it's definitely ego.
right. But so then not responding to your first instinct, I would say then that's accountability to you now. When you, instead of reacting immediately when someone calls you out on something, whatever that might be, you know, you're accountable by checking yourself and realizing, you know what, my answer is coming out of my hurt ego. It's you going to go inwards and then realize, okay, they're right, I'm wrong. Is that what you do when it comes to accountability?
Yes, I have to own all my mistakes. It doesn't matter what they do anymore. It's never how I was for a very long time until only a few years ago. It's only been a few years that I've been this new man that I'm still getting better every day. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'll never be. I screw up all the time. There's no more, I did
Same
that
here.
because, yeah, I acted like that because you shouldn't have did that. Well, I only said that because you said that. Well, I only called you that name because you were poking at me. I don't play that bullshit anymore. I have to act a certain way. I'm a man, and no matter what is said or what is done, my actions are my actions, and I have to control them. I'm not going to lower myself anymore, even with the ego, with the anger. I don't want to lower myself with that and bash somebody because I'm not getting what I want. You're not acting the way I want. You're not telling me that I'm right. So I'm going to be an asshole now so it's a freedom that I don't have to act like that anymore. And then I'm aware of it. So
What
it was a struggle.
right. What would you say is the hardest truth you've had to accept about who you were?
Hardest truth. So I was pretty much full of shit. I've been told in the past I was always full of shit. I used to get real mad. And they weren't lying. And now reflect back. I know that I was full of shit. I had to act all the time. I had to pretend all the time. I was very defensive. And even if when I got caught that I was wrong, I got defensive and acted out. So I ended up calling you names or I shut down, and I'd be like, you're just being negative. You don't know me. You don't know nothing about me. I lived like that for a long time, and it's sick now to think back, and I'm reflecting back, and it wears you out. It's tiring. It really is.
That's very interesting. You know, modern research talks about two main styles of narcissism: the grandiose and vulnerable. Grandiose narcissism looks confident, loud, and even magnetic. And people love the grandiose type. And vulnerable narcissism hides behind withdrawal and shame. Sometimes the same person swings between both. The wound basically just changes masks, and today we're starting right where everything begins. We're talking about understanding narcissism. Which style you think you identify with the most?
Definitely the first one. And the second one too, a little bit, but mostly the first one. I had to act out. I was like an actor. I had to be somebody that I wasn't, to hide who I was, to get into a relationship. This is sick. And I even subconsciously I was doing it, not knowing I was actually doing it. If I'm going to date someone and I have to know some things about them, and that's the man I was to fit her profile. I did that my entire life. I always had to be someone that I didn't want to be to get what I wanted from that person. And then Jason would come out. Not that I was a bad guy, but I'm not that person. I did that for a long time. I did it mainly in relationships, I think. I always hit it off for everyone pretty much. I'm easy going to get along with, but to get into a relationship and to manipulate that situation to get to what I want, and to be the guy that I knew that they would be attracted to. Whatever that was.
Right. So that's interesting because I living with one, for quite a long time. I realize now that I'm not with him for the victims, we always think, well, was it something I did, was it I didn't do? But I realized that I gave him all the tools from the beginning. I told him exactly what he needed to hear, all the things that I dreamed of. And scary enough, he became that. He became the man I needed, the guy that would listen, the guy that would understand everything, patient, quiet, well spoken, soft, that would make all my dreams come true until those dreams started to become a nightmare. And so, is that something that was part of your mask, becoming
My,
the person they needed you to be?
my mask is different. I'm not charming. I'm not a listener. I have ADHD, so I'm all over the place. Even if I try listening to you, I'd start chasing flies. I'm not that guy, but I did have to wear a mask. I did tell you things that you wanted to hear, and I always went above and beyond to make you happy. And then once I got you, I would still do nice things that I think were nice. I wouldn't think about, hey, what does she think is nice? I didn't do that. I did. Hey, this is what Jace thinks is nice. I'm going to take her to a football game. Now, hey,
Right.
she loves shows. Let's take her to a show. Let's take her to a circus. Let's take her on a cruise. No, let's have some friends over and watch a football game. It was just, but the mask you're talking about, I was always extra funny. That's what I would do. I'm sitting here thinking what my mask looked like. I tried to be the funny guy. I tried to make them laugh because I'm not, if anybody knows me, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not well educated. So I would use my humor, just stupid things that would make them laugh, That's how I would always win them over. And then I'm not even that funny of a guy, you know?
I think
I
you
think
are.
that I am, but I think
Yeah, I think you are.
Heather tells me I'm not funny at all. But that's what I would do as a mask. It's funny you say a mask. What was my mask? I never really thought about that, Liz. I like that. Yeah, I
But
guess
yeah, go ahead. I'm
uh,
sorry. Finish your
my
thought.
mask. That would be my mask. Wow, I never really thought about this. This is the first time I thought of this. Obviously, they would always tell me, and I didn't even know I was doing this on purpose. This is how good it was. So I didn't mean it. And it was good, but not good. I was a calm, patient, funny guy. You're pretty relaxed, pretty calm. And anybody who knows me heard that, they would laugh. That's not Jason. And not that I don't want to be that guy, and I'm much better today, but that guy in the past, no, I wasn't relaxed or calm. I was always very high strung. So I've always played that well when I wanted to get what I wanted, I guess. Quiet, listen, just
Would
that
you
was
say
it.
would you say that there were stages to your performance, that evolved over time with your relationships? Like in the beginning, you presented yourself as someone that was composed and secured of himself, successful, whatever that might look like. Um, and then it evolved to showing the true self. Because, with me, that's how it was. Everybody thought we were perfect together, but nobody really
Yeah,
knew what was behind the
no,
curtains.
I thought so too. I was like, wow, this, when you see, even when the picture, the outlook, everything about it, perfect.
Right. But for you, with your relationships, was it like that? Did people thought, wow, look at these two, they're the perfect couple? Because
Yeah, they
narcissism,
did.
obviously, being the fact that it's a spectrum, obviously it looks different for everyone that it's in it.
Yeah, this relationship now, it's obviously it's not perfect, but this is what you see is what you get. That's this relationship, and that's who I am today. I've been told I'm very authentic. My friend Eddie tells me that's my superpower. He says your superpower is you're very authentic, and so what you see is what you get. I'm indoors, outdoors, how I am. So Heather gets nervous when she takes me out in public. So our relationship is amazing. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's amazing, and it works and it clicks. My past relationships, even when they were a nightmare, God, I can go, I'm not going to say her name, but back when I was in my early 20s, it was probably the most toxic, verbal, physical relationship I've ever, like, breaking stuff I've ever been in. And everybody thought we were a great couple. We played it off. I played off so good on the outside. You know, the lies, the lies, the lies, the lies. It was just nonstop lying, and it was bullshit.
You know, I don't know if you knew this about narcissism, but it sets early in childhood. You know, it's a response to emotional neglect, criticism, or trauma. I know that you've obviously endured horrible things during your childhood, and when a child learns that being vulnerable equals being unsafe, they build this armor, the mask, you know, the false
Oh,
self. And it's made of this confidence that we all see, you know, the control, the perfection. But in reality, inside, it's chaos, it's loneliness, it's hurt, it's a lot of pain on the person inflicting the pain to others without sometimes not even knowing it. When you think of the people you've hurt, what emotions come up to you?
then and now, then, wow, you said it, man. You said vulnerability because I was so vulnerable as a child when I was being abused. I couldn't protect myself. Wow. Yeah. So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me as an adult. I had no sympathy in my 20s. It's sad to say, probably even with my son's mother for most of the time. I had some sympathy, but not a lot. Or empathy. I'm sorry, empathy. I didn't feel nobody's pain. I'm not lying. This is God's honest truth. There was a piece of me. I didn't want to be like my father. I never wanted to be like him. And I know he was mentally ill. I know today, when I look back, he was mentally ill. He was definitely narcissistic, and he was definitely a psychopath, sociopath. He was definitely a sociopath. And I used to think, is there a piece of me as a sociopath? How come I hurt these people? I don't care. But as I got into recovery, that brought me to God, a relationship with God. It got me to start to know him. And the more I stayed in recovery, the more I worked on myself, the more empathy and sympathy I had, the more I was feeling what they were feeling. And I didn't like that. And then I got out of recovery, full backwards again. And that was with my son's mother. She's strong. She's strong. To deal with me for 7 years, and not the whole 7 years was like that. Probably good, steady 3. I was in full-blown drug addiction at the time, so my narcissism was out full blast. You know, my
Wow.
traits, my manipulating, my lying, my cheating. I know how she dealt with me, but I always made everything look so good. I made that we had, because I don't want to embarrass her either, but I never felt bad. I never felt bad because I was so hurt and broken, not from her, just me in general from my childhood. And, I did deal with it growing up before her, but I never saw all these other traits I had, the manipulation, the narcissism, and I still had some anger. I had a lot of anger still, and I never really got to the root of it. I never really focused on Jason. How can I be better? It was always, how can you stop? Why don't you stop poking at me? Well, maybe if you would just watch this instead of this, I won't get so aggravated. Or, I don't eat this, so why don't you just try and eat it since I like it? It was always, what can you do to make me better? To make me, not better, make me feel better. It has to be exhausting on that end.
It
And
is.
you're it. It's got to be exhausting. And it breaks my heart. I have a great relationship with her today, thank God. We were just on a
That's
boat
good.
ride today. We're on a nice boat ride today. Her husband called me this morning, asked me if I want to go on a boat ride with him, my son, his mother, and my future wife, Heather. I said, yeah, that's the relationship we have today.
That's so
If I,
healthy. That's so
it is.
wonderful.
If I
Yeah.
never decided to work on myself, I wouldn't have this life I have today. If I didn't choose to be a different man, choose to take a different path, I would not be this man today. And trust me, listen, there's a lot of ego smashing, a lot of taking the low road, a lot of I'm wrong all the time. I have men in my group. A lot of it, I'm not going to get into right now, is going to Jesus. I was at my rock bottom in 2009, 2010. I hit my rock bottom pretty hard. I was on interferon at the time for a Hep C. And it made me really sick. So suicidal, homicidal, not long. I was very homicidal. I couldn't leave my house. And that because of my ego. I know the Lord's, he's tricky.
Yeah.
I had a big ego, and that brought me to my knees to get me closer to him. And if I wasn't close to him, I wouldn't be able to work on these traits. No one can do this on their own. No one's going to ever change on their own.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Right. So would you say that the biggest emotion you feel now today, looking back to the person you used to be, is shame? You feel
Yeah,
shame about hurting them?
absolutely. And I'm talking all the way back to when I was a teenager. Like, I feel bad. It's shame. I don't feel bad because I know they totally forgot about me. I'm nobody. And I pray to God. I even had them, I don't know their names, but I still to this day, once in a while, if it crops up in my memory, I'll pray for the people in the past that I've harmed, that they forgot about me, and they're having an amazing, blessed, spiritual, amazing life, more than I can ever imagine in my wildest dreams. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Right. Well, narcissism isn't born from arrogance. It's born from a desperate need to feel safe.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
you had a narcissistic sociopath father who hurt you deeply. And so obviously this self you created, this alternative self you created, obviously was very early on. And so of course you have a history all the way back to your teen years. Do you ever feel grief for the version of love you weren't able to give? Like
Yeah.
not just love for people, but like to yourself as well. You didn't have the capacity to be authentic. So
Yeah.
do you
Oh,
ever
my
feel
God.
grief? Yeah.
Listen, this path I've been taking the last 5 years has been different and life-changing for me. Since 2020, October 11th, 2020, that's my sobriety date. But that's when I came back and I said to myself, when I didn't think I was going to make it back this time, I did tell myself I need to change everything about me. They just say in recovery, you want to change, be better man, you need to change not this and this, everything. I was all in. My son needed a father. He needed me. And I didn't want to screw him up like my father did to me. So I dove in. I dove in from day one, detoxed myself anyway. I got past that part and then I dove right into my anger, being narcissistic, manipulating, being selfish, self-centered. And I've been on top of it since. And the first 2 years been rough for me, but I've been on it, aware of it, working on it. I got my small group, 5 men, 6 men, 3 men, men that I trust, men that I love, men. They're all believers. You don't have to be believers, but they just happen to be believers in Christ. And my road door's been opening and closing, and I'm aware of that. I have excellent awareness of what I should be doing and not doing today. And the Lord has opened so many doors for me. I've learned so much from so many people. He just keeps giving me gifts. I went to my knees and I begged him, die. I will do whatever you want. I will do. I will help. I will serve you until the day I die. Help me get sober. Help me get better. Help me be the best man I can be. And he's so forgiving. My life is so amazing today. And I'm not talking about all the stuff that I have. I want here, man, here. That craziness. I have such a strong, solid foundation today. I live today like I've never lived in my life. Such a simple program. I could have did this back in 2006 when I first got sober. I was so hard-headed, so selfish, and so even lazy. I always
You
wanted
weren't ready
my
then.
way. No, I
Right.
just wanted it my way. I wasn't. And some people don't have to hit the bottom I hit. I had to hit rock bottom mentally. And I'm not talking about financially because that could go on forever. The mental part. So yeah, that's, and I forgot what the question was. I hope I answered it, but that's where I am right now. That's where I am right now. And I'm so damn grateful.
Right. Did you know then, Jason, that what you were doing, the control, the walls that you built was actually protecting something very fragile inside of you?
See, I wouldn't even say fragile because I had an ego problem. I'm not fragile. I'm strong. You can't break me. And again, we'll go back to interferon when I used to act like that. act out like that, especially I thought I was invincible at 28, 29 years old. I was in my prime, peak prime, 30 years old. Of course I am. Most kids should be in 30 years old. And when I interfered, it brought me to my knees, brought me to the Christ. What was the first part of the question again?
If
To the
you
point of my
back
story.
then, if you knew back then that the self you created was actually
Yeah.
protecting you,
Yes.
protecting.
So when all that happened, then I had to go. That's when I learned more about me. When these programs at church, cross current, living waters, huge programs. For me, especially, I learned a lot about me, how vulnerable I was. I was afraid to get vulnerable because if I got vulnerable, that shows weakness, and I didn't want to show weakness. Or less when I was a kid, so I couldn't protect myself. I can't show I'm vulnerable as an adult, then I can't protect myself. So I kept my walls up. I don't want women hurting me. I don't want men hurting me. I don't want nobody ever hurting me again. So as soon as you said something I didn't like, I got defensive real fast, snappy, like 0 to 100 real quick. That's it.
So you were unaware of the fact that you were narcissistic or a narcissist, but you also were unaware. You were not aware of the fact that you were narcissist because you were protecting yourself. You did not know any of that. You didn't realize
No.
that was a response to something.
For me, it felt like just fear. I was scared to drop my walls. That's all it was. And I didn't know I was doing everything else, hurting people to keep myself safe. I hurt everybody around me to keep me safe. That was it.
Right.
And all I had to do,
Right.
yeah.
So how do
So
you stop yourself now when the old patterns try to take over?
I'm aware of it today. There's still it's like see that feeling when you get real irritated? Like, picture that times like 50. Like, if you call me out and you hit that nerve, I'm like, oh, God.
Give me an example today. What triggers you today to get that little feeling there?
Let me see. Heather, the other day, she was, we were nitpicking, arguing about something stupid. And she said something and she was right, but I didn't. Told her I meant it that way, but I didn't. She goes, no, you didn't say it like that. She goes, you told me you said it like this. And I was like, she's right. She hit the nerve. And that's when she said that. I remember she's right. She said, I don't want to talk about it right now. I don't want to talk about it. And you're being negative. I don't want to talk about it. And she smiled and she goes, I'm just going to go to bed. And she went in the room and I sat on the couch. I was like, I remember I sat for I get out of it quick though. So it's definitely, I get out of it quick. I'm like 30, 40 seconds went by. I'm like, I pop up, I go in the room. She was doing something and I jumped in. I was like, oh, do it like this. And she looked at me like it was crazy. She goes, you are so bipolar.
Add it on, baby.
Add it, just ADHD. I don't know.
Right.
You smash that part where you know you're wrong, taking the low road, or just admitting you're wrong, or somebody's in your, for me, like in my early 20s, men don't want to stand down when there's a fight. I remember this one, the first time I ever did this, it's probably in my late 20s. I was in an AA meeting and I wanted to fight this kid in the meeting, acting crazy. And my sponsor looked at me. He goes, if you touch him, I'm calling the police on you. I was like, I walked out. How dare him threaten me, But I walked away. And when I walked away from that, I felt like crap for a week. Remember, that was step one of me walking away. I didn't feel like the bigger man. I didn't. But I know today I was the bigger man walking away. It happened to me again a couple months later. And that time I was able to walk away without being threatened by the cops. I walked away and I was huffing and puffing. 2 days it lasted. Now today, unless it depends on the situation. If I'm in a good headspace, someone's poking at me or getting in my way or they yell at me, I laugh. See ya. Better you than me. I'm having a good day. You ain't taking my thunder. Peace out.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the difference between then and now. And like I said, it's a freedom. It's all
Right.
freedom up here. It just feels good to not have to act like a crazy person anymore.
So would you say, obviously having the circle support system, it's key in recovery and keeping yourself in check. Who helps you the most now when, to stay grounded and when your ego flares up again? Who is the key person in your life when it comes to that?
See, I still get confused sometimes when I'm wrong. Sometimes, because I always, when I say sometimes, because I ask questions going forward. So if it happens again, I already know that I'm wrong. So if a situation happens where I'm arguing with my fiance, with Heather, I'll just call her Heather. If I'm arguing with Heather and I'm right. I don't care. I'm standing my ground. I'm right. She's going to apologize to me. I'm not even saying anything to her. I'm not going to talk to her. I'm going to go to the gym. I'll go outside. I'll call Steve and my brother Bo or Eddie. I have a few men that I talk to. Whatever, what's going on? And I'll tell them the situation. I always tell my end. I don't put any icing on it. I tell them exactly what I did, exactly what I said, because I want to know if I'm wrong. I want the truth. And 99.9% of the time, I'm wrong. And it's like, all right. And then I ask, why am I wrong? I just want to know, how am I wrong here? Because you can't do A, B, or C. You have to understand, this is this. She feels like this. I'm like, hey, I'm wrong. I thought that I was right because I did this, but I'm wrong. It won't happen again. And of course, I told you, I got to hear that. And I'm like, you don't need to do that. I told you. So that's how this works for me. That's the process I told you. I get irritated. I go outside. Now I go outside. I don't break stuff. I don't scream. I don't scream the B word. I don't scream the C word. I go outside. I always cool down first, make the phone call. If he's not available, I call the next one. And I don't go back in the house until I talk to someone. And so far,
Right.
I've always got a hold of somebody. So those are the tools that I use to grow as a man. I always use the term leveling up. Every day, moments, daily, I want to level up. I don't want to float. I don't want to sink. I want to keep my foot on the gas. I want to keep going. And I want to be the best man that I can be for her and for my
Right.
son. I want my son to
Right.
see this version, not the version I got to grow up and watch.
Absolutely. Do you, and the subject of forgiveness now, and rebuilding trust, do you believe you can rebuild trust with people you've hurt? Or do you see healing as a separate journey?
No, I believe it depends on the person. Do you want to be forgiving? Do you want to feel better? Because if you want to feel better, you have to forgive people. If you can't forgive people, you're never going to heal. For me, I have to be resentment free. And for other people to I'll speak for me to make it easier. If I want to stop being angry, if I want to stop being irritable, and I don't want nobody renting space in my head, I have to forgive them. And if I'm having a hard time forgiving, I might give it to God. I pray, Lord, please help me forgive this person. And if I see somebody, like an example on Facebook, that irritates me, that annoys me, I'll compliment them. I'll say something nice. And not all of them. I'll say nice stuff to even my good friends. But I learned to start complimenting everyone, because that's one of the things I stopped doing all through my 20s and 30s and even my early 40s. I couldn't give anyone a compliment. I don't know why. And he said to me, what's wrong? My past Stevie, I never met a man that can give compliments like him. He just hands them out. You get a compliment. You get a compliment. Everybody gets a compliment. And I was like, I love that he's like that. You'll walk into a room and feel like this, and in like 10 seconds, he makes you feel like king of the world. He makes you feel like a lion, like I got this. I want to do that. I want to be that guy. So now I see people, especially if I'm not a fan of them, I like to give people compliments, like to make them feel good, like you. And I mean this, you're Wonder Woman. Your kids love that. See their faces when I called you Wonder Woman in front of them? Adams especially looked at you and goes, my mommy's Wonder Woman? I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Thank you for that.
So, no, absolutely. I love doing that, especially with kids, because we cannot poison these kids. I was poisoned. I heard he's ugly. He's not good looking. His teeth are retarded. He's not a smart kid. He's got big bags of circles around his eyes. I had to hear that also, even through high school. But high school, it just irritated me. I was tired of hearing it. But as from the age of I have pictures when I was 2, 3 years old. I had big circles around my eyes. And I was an ugly kid. I was an ugly kid.
Do you know
I
why
got
though?
probably because my father, being malnutrition, beaten on all the time,
No,
sitting in the house.
It's a tell sign of abuse.
I don't know what that means.
So when you have that darkness around your eyes, it's a sign of someone being abused physically,
Uh,
emotionally. Yeah.
it was, yeah, I looked like I was from the Fester Adams family. It was bad. I'll show you a picture one day. You're gonna be like, yeah, he wasn't like I'm not exaggerating. I look bad. And then they grow up into that, and then you're just stuck in that. But again, all this
Right.
recovery and church and God and Jesus, nothing phases
So
me anymore.
everyone should forgive. I agree. Everyone should forgive and give it the opportunity to be forgiven. But obviously, pain is a tricky thing, you know? Forgiveness takes time. And how do you handle the discomfort of knowing someone may never really trust you again, may not be able to forgive you? How do you handle that?
I don't. That's okay. That's a boundary, and that's one thing I never respected until now. I don't blame them. You know, if they can't forgive me, I understand. And I honestly, I pray that they do forgive me. That person will be in my prayers, that they forgive me, they move on, and they're perfectly happy, not even remembering what I did. You know, I forgave my
Right.
father. You know, I forgave him. There's not a piece of me that hates him. I actually hope that he's in heaven. I never thought I'd forgive my father. And then when I forgave him, I said, I hope he burns in hell still. But I don't hate him because he doesn't belong. And that's because I hate him. I want him in hell. I want him in hell because he doesn't belong to be in heaven. He was horrible. He gets no, he don't get that. But then as I got older, I got closer to him. Yeah, I hope he's in heaven because I don't know what he's grown up into to turn into that monster, but I know I broke the chain. So to forgiveness is freedom. If you can't forgive someone, you're putting yourself in a little, you have to forgive people. And that's how I learned to forgive by the men I've been around. And then when you start forgiving people, that's the best part about it. Like I shared this, I sponsor people too. I'm like, guys, when you start forgiving people, you're going to see blessings. You're going to see you changing and growing as a person. And you start noticing the Lord starts blessing you more. A little blessing here, a little blessing here. Because if there's any resentment, hate, or anger, you're just blocking yourself from him. That's all you're doing. You're slowing down your process to grow because you're mad at somebody. I still get mad at people, but I come out of it quick because I want to keep growing. And I know from my experience, my examples of the way I live, I can't hate on people. I can't hate on people. I can't be mad at people. I have to get over it quick. And if I hurt someone, I pray that they get over me fast because I don't want them to sit. I don't want to rent space in anybody's head.
How
So you got to forgive.
in my personal experience, you know, obviously how do you forgive someone who continues to inflict pain over and over? You know, because I have children with him and I obviously have to deal with him on a daily basis. And, you know, it's one thing I can say, you know what, I choose to forgive you for all the horrible things you've done in the past. But then I know
Try
that
this.
this person isn't in the same path as you are. Like,
No.
what do you have to say to someone like me right now?
If I was in your shoes and I was where I am in your shoes, I would, Lord, I forgive him. I'm giving it to you. Please handle this. I'm giving it to you. He's going to start opening doors for you. Listen, these are his consequences. God's going to do for you for what you can do for yourself. That's it. So his consequences, and we all suffer. We always have to suffer. There's always consequences for our actions. You keep doing what you do. Keep giving it to God. Do what you need to do on your end. But I know that's what I do. I would pray, Lord, I'm going to put it in your hands. He's going to open doors and close doors for you. And then
Amen.
he might
Amen
close
to
the
that.
door.
Right. But then that goes back to what you're saying. You know, you give it to God and there's nothing you can do about what others
That's
do
it.
and may say. You don't have control over that. I don't have it. You know. But
Boom.
what would you want people that you've hurt, if they were watching this, they were listening to this conversation, what would you want them to know about the person that you're becoming now?
I would tell them that obviously I'm truly sorry for any harm that I've ever caused them. If there's anything that I can ever do to make them feel better, or anything that I can do for them anyway, let me know. And going forward, I'm not going to hurt or harm anyone going forward in my life. You know, I'm a changed man, and I'm sorry that you had to cross paths with me. I truly am.
Wow, that's deep. And it's honest. Thank you for saying that. Any other person who is a survivor, I'm sure that feels like a relief. I want to ask you something because the mask we talked about is obviously full of performance. You're always performing an act. It's hard to know who you really are.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest thing that drives it is being admired. I getting all this attention, this admiration, these compliments, all these things. Who are you when you're not trying to be that guy?
I'm just Jason. I'm
Who is
loyal.
Jason? Lowe.
I'm a I'm a loyal friend. Um, um, I try to be as honest as I can be. I don't bullshit. You need me, I'm there. You know, I'm loving, I'm caring, I'm definitely giving. I think about you. I still think about me a lot, but I think about you a lot. And I'm a great dad. I love being a dad. I would think that I'm a pretty good spouse. Heather tells me how much she appreciates everything I do for her. I never heard that before, and I had no reason to ever hear from anyone else besides Heather, because Heather's the only woman that I've been with that I've actually been a changed man, a new man, and I'm a hardworking. I'm always going to be better. I definitely know that, and she knows that, and she loves that. I know she loves that about me. She told me. That's why she knows I preach it, I mean it, and I'm a man of my. And I'm a man. I'm very big. I'm a man of my word. If I say I'm doing it, I'm going to do it. That's it. I like
Yeah,
to keep. So
I know
I'm a
that.
big believer in that.
I want to move on to obviously fatherhood, but I have one last question
Gotcha.
in regards of identity. What do you think is the thing that scares you the most about being ordinary or just being seen as a flawed person?
Today? Oh, I don't care today. Just I don't care. We're all flawed. You know, you have to live in that lifestyle that I was living in, trying to be someone that I wasn't. Today, I screw up all the time. I talk about how much I screw up. I talk about how much I'm a liar. I'm a cheater. I'm a thief. You lie once, you're a liar. You cheat once, you're a cheater. You steal once, you're a thief. I'm all those things, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of talking about my past. I'm not ashamed about talking about my childhood. I'm not afraid to show who I am as a man. I know who I am as a man. So if somebody says something to me or tells me something I think that I am and I know that I'm not, it doesn't hurt me. I was told that about 6, 7 years ago. You need to know who you are as a man. It took me, and I remember that stuck with me. I was like, who am I? I remember thinking about it. Who am I? Days to go by, and then I stopped thinking about it. And then a year later, I'm like, who am I? I can never find out. I only know who I am through Christ. That's it. The closer I got to him, the more I knew who and what kind of man that I am. So that's big. I have a question for you though. I know your situation. Say something happens where you don't speak to him for a few years. He stops bothering you. And out of the blue, he shoots you an email or a text or a phone call that says, hey, I'm a changed man. I'm doing this, this, and this. A, B, and C. Again, everything that you would want for him to be forgiven. And they're true. And they're all true. And everything he says he's doing is true. And you give him his space and you give him his time, and he's not full of crap. And he actually is a changed man. And he is doing whatever he can to be the best man he can be without living dirty. And has a relationship with the Lord, because I know you're a big believer in Jesus. What do you do? And he doesn't even ask if you want to be with him. I know it's too soon to ask that question, but I'm just curious if you know what you would do now. But if not, it's not a big deal. Because I know it's too soon. But I'm curious.
I think I'd be happy to welcome him back into our lives as the father of my children,
Hmm. Okay.
because I want nothing more for them than to have a relationship with him, a healthy relationship with him.
Yes.
I don't think that him and I would ever be together again. I would be very happy for him if he's changed, because I would know that he's no longer suffering and he's not under this heavy burden, you know. But if that answers your question, I'd be happy that he is a person who is trying to be better for his children, all his children. I think that'll be it. I'll
That's an
be happy
amazing
for him.
answer. I
Yeah,
love that answer. No, I do. I love that answer.
thank you.
That's where I stand on my ex right now. I left
Yeah.
on horrible terms. She's my best friend today.
Did you disappear like that?
Yeah, I just stopped talking to her. When there was a talk on the phone, it was about Brody, and that was it. It took her a while. Even when I changed, I didn't push nothing on her or her husband. 'Cause I was horrible to both of them. They started getting attracted to me and my lifestyle, and they didn't know if I was full of shit, but being around me. And trust me, I know it's so different seeing her then and now when she wanted to start coming around again, for a second. You can see her walls are up. Now both walls are down. They're open to me. I'm very open to them. We have personal conversations with each other. We talk on the phone about Brody, what's his future. And I want that for you. And I really do. And I'll keep on praying for it. I definitely
Thank
want
you.
that for you. And all the moms and dads out there, because there's
Of
nothing more
course.
than freedom than having a relationship with your kid's spouse, your spouse, with the people you had the kids with. You don't be fighting with
Right.
them. You're just messing
Right.
your kid up.
Yes. And, going into that subject, of fatherhood, of parenthood, when you look at your son, do you see pieces of the child you once were?
No, he's nothing like me, and I love that. He's outgoing. Nah, I'm outgoing now, but not as a kid. He ran across the street yesterday, say hi to the neighbor's kids. A new neighborhood we moved into. Hey, hi, I'm Brody. How's it going? I
And
got
then he saw,
anxiety watching him. I'd be the little kid in the window looking at the blinds, watching them play across the street, wishing that I could be with them. That was me as a kid.
well, what I mean, I want to know if fatherhood brings back your younger self, the one who needed gentleness but never received it.
Yeah, I probably yeah. I like I said, I broke that chain, father, to raise my kid differently than the way he was raised and the way he raised me. I don't scream. I yell sometimes, but I apologize. I don't scream at him. I don't call him names. I don't beat him. Uh, I discipline him. I spanked him 3 times my entire life. The kid is going to be 11 soon. So I raise him with love. I compliment him all the time. I'm how smart he is. He's the smartest kid I know. Tell him, and when I'm doing a little job and, hey, Brody, can you help me out? I'm like, I can't do this without you. I need your help. And I see a smile on his face.
He feels important. He
Yeah.
feels valued and needed. And
Yes. And
yeah,
that's what I give to him, what was never given to me.
right.
I love it.
So that's how your childhood pain influenced the way you protect him today. Would you say
Yes.
that's how it is?
Yes.
No, and I see that. You're very conscious about how you're building your life around him. And I think that's a beautiful thing, from being what you have, people will get to know you more, get to know us more, and they'll get to know how the journey hasn't been easy, but you've made it and you're staying strong in it. And that I'm very proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Not a lot of parents understand that it's not about us. Once they're here, it's not about us anymore. And it's about healing also, so that we don't damage them. We don't get them into that mess of ours. It's tough. It's very tough being that connected and that committed to breaking trauma chains. It's not easy.
No.
And so with that, I wanted to ask you, how do you handle moments when his emotions, now mirror the ones you were not allowed to have as a child. How do you handle that? Does that creep in you and you kind of want to react?
I
Like
just
you
tell him how
should.
easy he has it. I do want to react, not like in a bad way. I tell him, I was like, he just has it so much different than the way I have. And it's funny because I say this. And sometimes you say to him is like, I'm not joking, but I'm making it a joke. I was like, you wouldn't last one day in my house as a kid. You wouldn't.
Right.
But the way he's just different. He's just different. When I was a kid, I couldn't act out. I couldn't cry. I couldn't whine because I got punched in the face, backhanded, or slammed, choked off a wall. I could never imagine doing that to my kid. So it's just different the way I handle his emotions when he acts out crying or whining or he's upset. I don't make fun of him for being upset. I don't tell him he's stupid. I never tell him he's dumb. So yeah, it's like a night and day the way I treat his emotions compared to the way mine were treated.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
But do you comfort him when he cries?
Yeah, so absolutely. Not when I'm not disciplining. Absolutely. When he's upset. Yeah. When he's helping, he's upset. Absolutely. He needs to know that I'm there as a father. I need him to know. I didn't mean to cut you off. I need him to know that I'm always going to be there for him. I'm not just his best friend. I am his father. I'm his protector.
That's very important to know. Of course, breaking generational trauma, it's the best thing you could do for him. And we're going to talk about more about this. We're going to talk about more narcissism and narcissistic parents and all these things. People like me on the other side of you have that fear. I have that fear. I wonder, is this going to happen to my kids? And with all the stuff that we've been researching, it's very interesting how no one is born a narcissist. This is something that we learn to do to a defense mechanism, essentially. It's a very long, interesting subject that we're gonna talk about in future episodes. But for now, I want to give a last thought, for closing this episode. And obviously, there's so much we can talk about, but healing is not a destination. It's a daily decision to become better, like you said, to elevate yourself and to
level up.
Absolutely. And every moment of awareness is a chance to respond differently, to love better, to choose truth over ego. And if today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you. Send us your questions, things you'd like us to explore in future episodes, and we may read them here on the show. Make sure to subscribe to the Diary of a Narcissist wherever you listen, and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're going to have some behind the scenes clips here soon to share with you. And we're going to continue these conversations about growth, faith, and healing. Until next time, let's keep asking the brave questions. Healing begins here, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And join us next time. Thank you.
Stay blessed.
Absolutely.